Okay, there we are. Hey, welcome everybody. This is Keith with How to Build Your Own Home. Again, this is live chat every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which again is kind of the Rockies area. We're in the southwest corner of Utah. I want to talk about a little bit about market things. I'm going to be doing a longer post on YouTube probably in the next couple of days, and I'll be posting that. But I just want to give a couple of things to think about while we're waiting for people to chime in. And we're going to be introducing a friend of mine, McKay Prince with High Peak Remodeling and Construction. He's a fellow contractor. He's also in my networking group. And we're going to talk about remodeling today and also new construction, kind of the pros and cons. And we'll have a nice little discussion. It's going to be fun today. But I want to talk about things to look at that I'm going to go into more depth on when I do a post next week, and we'll push that out. Probably one of the last posts we'll do, a market report, end of year and the first quarter prospects for 2025. Things to think about. The number one thing to think about are tariffs. We might not think that it's going to affect us, but it's going to affect us. Where is it going to affect us? Anything that's manufactured overseas, especially in China. If it's manufactured in China, it's going to have a tariff imposed on it. What is a tariff? A tariff is a tax imposed on all foreign imports, all foreign manufactured goods overseas. And the reason why some administrations do that is it's supposed to bolster local manufacturing or restore manufacturing inside the country. A good example is the high-end custom door that we have to buy from typically overseas. They are not manufactured in the United States. Labor was so cheap that they went overseas, and all those nice high-end custom front doors you get, they're manufactured overseas. I've had to hurry and order mine. I've got 2 or 3 clients that are going through design phase. I'm trying to press to get those ordered before the 20th of January when the new administration goes into office. Those tariffs are going to be immediate. I mean, there's executive orders drafted for that. Also for HVAC machines. Any of your hardware that's manufactured overseas, plumbing hardware, some of these things are going to probably more than likely go up in price. For some of us, it might not be a sizable amount. For others, it could be substantial.
Most of it's going to be the stuff during COVID that we're not able to get here. You're going to see the exact same things that are going to be delayed.
Good point. If it was manufactured and you had a hard time getting it in COVID, like a 400 amp panel.
Yeah.
All right. You can get those for cheap now, probably around $800. I paid $3,600 for mine during COVID. By the way, I have a very, very expensive 400 amp panel if you want to buy that. So these are the things that are going to just go up because of tariffs. So watch for that. Anything manufactured outside the country, especially in China, it's going to go up. Interest rates. Right now, interest rates for this moment in time have dropped just a little bit, almost a half a point to about 75 basis points. So that's a good thing. We'll talk more in depth as to how this is going to affect construction. If it drops even more, you're going to see construction go bonkers. All right. It's just, you're going to see another balloon. But I'm not saying that's going to be the case next year because there's a lot of other things happening that I will go into a lot more detail, especially the bond market and how that's going to affect everything. The one thing that's really hard to gauge is the fact that there's going to be inflation and deflation. In some areas, there's going to be deflation. In some areas, there's going to be inflation. Inflation can be all those things that are tariff oriented, but there's also going to be deflation. Again, the new administration, and we have proof in the pudding. What did the Trump administration do prior to the current administration? Well, we had oil that was much, much lower in price, and so that brought down the cost of gas. And if gas comes down substantially, even 25 cents a gallon, which is more than likely, that's going to affect the cost of goods, transportation goods, everything. When I used to build back in the day, we do framing bids. And then I would always have to add almost 10% sometimes if a framing bid or package was bid before the rise of lumber costs, which would also happen twice a year. A lot of the times it occurred in July. Lumber prices would jump in July and sometimes in the fall and sometimes in January. That's based upon the futures contracts for oil. What is oil per barrel? And if they saw the future contracts going up for oil, then that would be a thing you'd have to factor. Lumber packages can just go bonkers. You can get a lumber package that could be $45,000, and in a bad situation, it could be upwards of 60 to 70,000, and in a good situation, it could be closer to $45,000 or $40,000. So that's the number one area that's going to fluctuate in the new construction arena. Is lumber is going to go up, it's going to go out, and it's going to do its thing. So moving fast, getting your budget, moving quick, and getting things squared away is going to be the thing to watch out for. All right. We're going to, again, go into more detail on that on a post for a YouTube channel. I just wanted to give you a couple things to look out for and watch out for. And there's a lot more there, but look for that to come. We're going to start to take some questions. But before we go, I want to introduce McKay Prince. McKay is, we're going to dedicate today's show to his daughter. Okay. He had a sad situation. Don't need to go into the details of it, but it was a tough loss in his family. So we're going to dedicate, what was her name? Penina. We're dedicating today's show to Penina. So I just wanted to do that. We're going to start taking some questions, but I want to introduce yourself and why you got into remodeling especially, and why we'll do some pros and cons as to remodeling versus new construction.
Yeah, perfect. So like you said, my name is McKay with Hyper Peak. I've been in construction for about 10 years. I originally started as a plumber, and I did that for several years, and I just appreciated more of the management side. So I got into custom homes up in Park City, after which I came back here. I'm originally from Hurricane, Southern Utah, and got into just doing some of the more remodeling. I did a couple of houses that I owned up in Salt Lake and West Jordan. Mm-hmm. So just learning to, I just learned how to do it for myself. I had to do it for, I wanted to save money, so I did it myself. There's a lot of learning I had to do on flooring, and I'm still learning some of the lessons I had to learn when I started my stuff. I just really enjoy taking something and making it better, and I like to do it for a cost-effective way. I try to help a lot with investors or people that have like a goal of selling their home or trying to maximize what they could get for it. That's kind of what I like to work with. But anyone who needs remodeling here in St. George, I'm game to help them to get what they want out of their property.
So what's interesting is a lot of you have had a lot of students wanted to become GCs after they got their first home built. They learned the hard knocks of the whole thing, but you have a little bit of an edge. I've always talked with anybody, if they want to be a GC, you've got to get your foot wet in one trade. Mm-hmm. And actually 2 trades is really optimal, but one of those trades has to be mechanical. Electrical, HVAC, or plumbing, and you've got it in plumbing.
Yeah.
How much of an advantage has that given you, knowing that background?
It helps me a lot, just being able to relate with my subs and actually being able to know how to solve a problem, or at least to be able to foreshadow or like to know what's coming up. I've had an issue, for example, I did a job up in Parowan, and as we started the job, I wasn't really sure about the plumbing system. And the owners were like, yeah, it's fine, we're okay with it. And then I started talking to some of the neighbors. Turns out this house was built so old, they just had a pit or like a hole, not even a sump pump or not even like a leach line. They just had a pipe, a hole in the ground that all the sewage went into. So this was after we did the demo. This house had abandoned for 10 years. So there's a lot of issues, but the neighbors were like, hey, they are always having backed up sewage system. So I told the owners as soon as I found out, like, hey, we're going to have to put in a grinder and we're going to have to pump that out. But if it was somebody else, I don't think that they would have thought about that. But someone who's known, that's the solution is that. So,
but that gives you an edge because you know what to do and what not to do. Me, it's electrical. And if I didn't have one foot in mechanical somewhere, mm-hmm. then I would have a hard time relating.
Yeah.
But I've done electrical on hundreds of homes, having to talk with guys like you, and you'll go high, I'll go low, that kind of thing. I'll work around your plenum and stuff like that. And it really helped me out. Before that, it was roofing and framing and a lot of dirt work, But if you get your feet wet and you're an apprentice, or even you become a master plumber down the road, boy, that experience is invaluable. And that's what makes for, I think, in my mind, better builders is they've got their foot wet in one mechanical side, and if they can, eventually in one structural side, and that could be excavation, concrete, or framing. If they have a foot in one of those two things and then 1 foot in mechanical, everything else is lipstick. I mean, in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at it like another business, like be in management of like a Costco or something. You need to know how your department works before you can take over the whole store. Right. So having one ground to have some sort of, because even in plumbing, I understand a little bit about electrical when I was a plumber of like, oh, I need to make sure I keep my distance away from here. I can't be doing plumbing over your panel and stuff like that. Like you learn some of the other trades, at least trying to keep a distance and become well-rounded.
We'll start taking some questions, and we'll have some chime in from a remodeler and me talking about a new construction guy. And we'll give you the best feedback we can. Let's take our first question. This is from Kai Hoon. What is the process of having the electric company connect temporary and permanent power? That's a very good question. And if it works out right, you could actually save yourself temp power hookup. Mm-hmm. The temp power hookup is where you've got a pole right by where the transformer is, out by the street. Could also be right below the transformer that's on a pole. And they just plop that in the ground, and they bring the power down to that meter panel. And just below that meter is a 4-gain box where you have all the areas where subs can connect to. I like to try to avoid that if I can. And on some jobs, I will bring the power to the home as soon as I possibly could. On a mountain build, I brought the pipe all the way up into the foundation, about 4 inches away from the foundation. And we didn't have any power during the pour of the foundation, which is fine. We really didn't need anything. We had some generators. But once framing started, the first thing I did is I ordered permanent power. And a lot of counties and jurisdictions, they don't want to call it permanent power because that's tied to a certificate of occupancy. So it's really temporary power across the board. And you can have temporary power that's really permanent power on your building. And you can avoid the temp power pole setup because a lot of electricians are going to charge you anywhere from $400 to $600 on that. I've seen it as high as $1,000 just for temp power. And so if you stage it right, you can kind of work your way to, again, this is a little secret of saving money.
Yeah.
Especially on new construction, on remodels, they've already got power on the site. And if they have to turn everything down, they can't, except for at the meter where they've got possibly an outlet where they can get some power. But good question.
But I don't think we really answered. So the process is you got to call an electrical company to come put in a temporary pedestal, get the city to come hook up to your meter, and then they'll put the bulb in. So that's it has
to be inspected.
Yeah.
So even a temp power pole has to be inspected. So for me, if I can avoid that, I'll just have it put up on the house, my meter panel right on the house, have it inspected, and then I get permanent power brought to the building.
It's also such an inconvenience to have the temp power pedestal clear on the other side of the job.
It's hard. And then if it's too far away, and you have to have at least a 50 amp cord. If you have a 25 amp cord or even a 20 amp cord,
flipping your breaker all day long.
You're going to flip your breaker all day long, and that's obnoxious. So again, you weigh these things out. Every time I have a job that's more than 150 feet away, I'm going to bring that power as close to the home, right in the home, put it where it's going to be in the first place, and let that be my temp power, which is actually my perm power.
And you also have more connections on the inside.
Yes.
On the house.
A side note on that, just as something to help you out, when you bring your power to your house, you're going to need power inside the house. One of the best tricks, I always put my meter panel either in a mechanical room or inside a laundry room behind a door. And then just below that, I put a 4-gain box. So then I tell all my subs, my tile guys, my wood carpenters, everything, you now have power inside the house and you have power outside the house. You don't need to have power anywhere else, but at least those two places, everybody who works for me knows that's where they can get power. And you keep those outlets there, even if it's behind the door, nobody's going to see it. And it's nice to have an extra power outlet there. And I do a 20 amp circuit. I don't do a 15 or whatever amp circuit.
Have enough. And then also some contractors will do it to like stuff that have a dedicated line, like a refrigerator that'll have a dedicated line, or to your dryer.
Right.
That's another place if you don't want to do the 4-gain box.
Yeah. Make sure it's a higher 20 amp circuit, because I have a lot of subs that bring a little microwave on job sites. and I've seen them blow that while they're running a saw or something like that. So
Yeah.
a higher circuit is better. Let's ask the next question here. Doug in Utah. Hey, Doug in Utah. How would you get water to a bathroom on one side of a long hall when the supply is on the other side? Under slab or in the attic under insulation in Cache Valley? That's the key.
Yeah.
I'll let my friend here answer that one.
Well, if you can go under slab, it is better for your line. At being up in Cache Valley, it's just a little bit colder than it is down here. It just ends up if you're doing it up through there, make sure you have it insulated at the bottom and have its own dedicated insulation on top of everything else if you're going up above. But if you can go under, it's more preferable doing that.
Yeah, especially in Cache Valley, you're at about 67, almost 7,000 feet, if I'm correct. Very same as Sanpete County. They're about 6,500 feet. That's cold. And so if you're taking it through the attic and you've only got like 12 inches of insulation and you should have 24, and if it's not in a sleeve on top of all that and have no couplers, no couplers in that attic, it should also be one continuous PEX in a sleeve all the way through that attic and at the bottom of your insulation. And you should be okay. The closer you get to that ceiling, the closer you get to conditioned space. But if it's too far away from that conditioned space, like 10 or 15 inches above the drywall that you see right here, it could freeze and then you'd have a problem.
One of the things you can do is you can tarp it. So take the insulation away, put plastic up and over so that there's no insulation between your roof and your line. And then, so just like plastic over that, and then you put your insulation on. Also, if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you can rent an insulation machine and blow. Always make sure you have enough insulation on top of it. It's really effective or really cost effective to rent your own machine. Just a 2-man job. Just get someone to help you. A kid. That's all you need.
I had one HVAC guy. He suggested running them in parallel with his vent system. So when the heat goes on, that pipe is real close to that vent system, and that helps to offset any freezing. It's something to think of. If you've got a plenum or something going down that hallway, just run it right parallel to that, and that would help out from freezing as well. So
it would be quicker going through the attic. It's going to be more expensive going under the slab.
Yep.
But it is more 100% not going to freeze if you go under the slab in the middle of your house. So
and make sure it's specs in a sleeve, not just solid pipe.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Michael Libininski. Hope I said that, Michael. Building a story large ranch, thinking of using engineered trusses for first floor platform and roof structure. What are your pros, cons of stick framing versus getting trusses from the truss plant? You do not want to stick frame that. First of all, the engineer is going to cost a fee to come out and check everything and then stamp it. With engineered trusses, they're going to be stamped at the plant, and they just ship them to the job site. And they're going to be measured. I had an email from a student. He says, hey, the truss plant that I'm working with, they said that they'll send them the trusses based upon the plans. And I said, don't do that. They want to come out and measure the actual footprint of the home, have your framer chalk line everything, and measure off the chalk line. And so there's a lot of truss plants that are lazy out there, and they won't come to a job site and measure just to confirm, because that's going to change. I've seen framing change 1/2 inch to 1 inch to sometimes 3 inches, and that's going to affect your trusses drastically. So on this one here, use a truss plant. Please, please, please use a truss plant. And don't make them, don't let them go off the plans. They can bid it off the plans, but they're not going to engineer them or manufacture them off the plans. They're going to come to the job site and measure it. And the best way to do that, this is a really nice secret or hack, I guess you could call it, is sometimes truss plants will come when the framing is done, and they'll measure the trusses based upon the top of the wall. You don't need to do that. You just tell your framer to chalk the wall on the foundation, and then the truss plant will come measure everything from the foundation. And here's the benefit. Everything is chalk lined. You tell your truss plant, which you've now scheduled in advance, that you're going to be ready to chalk line at a certain date. They'll come out and measure, okay? And now you tell them, go ahead and go into production. Can you have them ready in about 4 or 5 days? Because your framers will be ready with that first wall in that about a time. And so if it's a timing thing, and rather than wait for the top of wall, I've seen framing structures sit for 3 to 4 weeks in bad weather, and you don't need that. All right. You can get those trusses there faster if you time it right.
It's the age-old rule: have it and not need it, better than need it and not have it.
Yeah. Yeah, just schedule it right, and you'll be on top of it. But don't try to build that. It's gonna cost you quite a bit, and you don't know if it's gonna be accurate.
And time.
Yeah. Oh, one truss could be off by half an inch, and you're gonna see a bubble in your roof. How many times have you seen that?
You see it all the time.
You see it all the time. So avoid that, and it's worth its weight in gold to have them engineered. So, and at a truss plant. Okay, next question. Josh James, how to ground 400 amp panel, stem wall already poured, so no condo or rebar for ground in that wall. You can call the power company and ask them if they're okay if you epoxy a grounding rod inside there. But the problem is they like it to be the full length inside the foundation. In the power company I work with one company in town here, and they like 2 grounding rods. All right. And they're both 8 foot long sticks, and they stick them in the ground. And I think they'd be okay if you did that. It would be a copper wire, a number 8 wire, and you run that up inside your panel, and you run it through your framing, and it comes out the side of your foundation and right into those grounding rods, and it go right into the dirt. And that's it's a quick fix if you didn't get your UFR ground. It's called a UFR ground. If you didn't get that installed.
Which the UFR ground is when you tie into the rebar of
right.
the house.
So it's like a piece of rebar stuck in the concrete, comes out, and then you have an acorn and you connect that right to the main
whole foundation.
Right. A lot of power companies are not, some of them, not all of them, but just some of them are trying to get away from grounding in the foundation. I don't know why. Some foundations have exploded because of electrical fires, or at least what do you call it? Lightning that would hit it and would just fracture the concrete. And some are moving just to copper grounding rods right outside the panel. And ask your power company and see if that would work. If 1 8 foot long stick and you don't have any rocks that are going to be in the way, and you can pound that into the ground, that
just a post pounder. Just get a post pounder and drive it down.
Yeah.
Or I know in some counties they'll let you go sideways if you bury it within a certain depth. I think it's 2 feet or a foot down. Mm-hmm. You can do an 8 foot long trench and stick it under there as long as they have 8 feet of.
Yeah, just ask them what the power company wants. Don't ask the permitting office. They don't have the authority to tell you. That goes directly to the power company. And so contact them and ask them, and they'll give you the direction on what to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Josh.
Can a whole hammer home water filtration system be used instead of a soft water system, or are both needed? I'll let
those are kind of 2 different things, and correct me if I'm wrong. A water softener is just to take the hardness out of your water. Mm-hmm. When you plumb it, you typically do not want to be drinking soft water. They do not want you to be doing that to your tap. That's where you do the filtration system. So like your faucet, your cold water line on your faucet would be the filtered, and like a refrigerator would be filtered. Mm-hmm. Some people will do it filtered after the soft water, but you want to have your soft water for sure on your appliances to keep them, like your tubs and your water heaters and all of that. So those are 2 separate systems.
And you talk with your plumber on that, because a lot of plumbers don't do the splitting appropriately when the water enters the home. And they'll just run wire. You want to have a separate line for your sink and a separate line for your ice cubes in your fridge and all that.
All coming from the main all the way up into those.
Yeah. And there's filter systems. There's one called a citric system, a filter system. I couldn't put soft water on a remodel I did, and I just had no space, none whatsoever. And so we put a citric filter system in. And so that just does the trick for the whole home. And we change that out once a year. So anything else on that? Okay. All right, Kai Hoon, a recommendation on how to go about finding a basement foundation sub. Really good question. That's a separate sub than a flat work or slab on grade or even a stem wall sub. You want to just you can call a concrete mixing batch, a mixing plant, and say, hey, I'm looking for somebody who does concrete foundations, because that's the concrete foundation or subcontractor who uses the most concrete. And they would know, and they should be able to give you one or two names. Then also call regular concrete subcontractors. Say, I'm looking to do a basement, but I also need someone to do the flat work. They could do that, but they would have another contractor who would do the basement. Most basement subcontractors, not all, most do not do flat work. They don't go there. Like in my town, there's 3 or 4 subcontractors who do basement walls. They do not touch flat work.
It's completely different type
Completely
of
different.
Different equipment and
Right.
different ways they pour.
They wouldn't even, their crews wouldn't even know how to finish.
No.
They wouldn't know. And plus they're way too busy, because it's huge forms that are brought to a job site and installed with a crane. It's a completely different scenario than
they have specific crews that only go there to put forms up and pull forms off. That's what they do all day long.
All day long.
Yeah, they make good money.
And if you don't find one in your local area, you just expand it out to a 50-mile radius, and eventually you'll find someone. But if you're super rural, like in the middle of Kansas somewhere, and there's nobody around, you're going to be pulling somebody from Denver. So just be aware.
He'll come and do it.
Yeah. So just keep looking around, call the plants, call other subcontractors, concrete specialists, and eventually they'll give you a number for somebody.
You want to make sure you do a good job, because if your walls end up crooked or anything, it's going to screw everything else up.
Yeah, and look at their forms. If they show up and they're beaten up, your wall's going to get beaten up.
Yeah.
And you can tell an old form, an old subcontractor, by looking at the wall. You can see the imprint of the wood. And when they pull the form, some of the wood sticks and it stays on the wall.
Because they oil it. They oil it on the inside.
And a lot of them don't oil it because they don't want to spend the money to put diesel fuel on there to protect it. And they're lazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I won't go into some nightmares.
Let them do their own stuff.
Just look around. If you ask around, you'll find somebody. Okay, Big Slim. Welcome, Big Slim. The city sent a bunch of corrections. One is to complete part 1 of CWMP. I looked it up, Construction Waste Management Plan. Can you elaborate? Is it something I do, or design or engineer? You don't need to engineer it. You don't need to design it. Okay. Now, 2 things. You can ask them, do you have a sample of that thing you're asking for me? Can you give me that? And if they can, then you just duplicate that. Now, what is that? A lot of the times it's a site plan during the course of construction, and it will have your porta potty over here. It will have your waste pool for concrete waste over here, which is lined. And then it will also have your place for your dumpster. Now, if that's all your waste management is, then that's all you need to do. But if it's a very highly sensitive to permitting office, they may ask you to do
you need a SWIP, right?
Yes, we call it SWIP in our area. I forget the name of that.
Water retention and all that. They want to make sure that you have your netting around to make sure that your construction waste doesn't blow away.
Right.
Putting fence panels up to make sure that Park City has a lot of that, but not down. I don't know if they have as much down here.
Yeah, it can get real detailed. They could actually ask you to block off storm drains in your own street, because they don't want waste going down into the storm drains, especially up in Park City where all the storm drains go into freshwater lakes and there's fish in those lakes, and they don't want stuff getting in there. So talk to your permitting office, ask them, can you give me a draft of what you're asking that is a template that I can use? And you can take the site plan of your home that you're building, and you can take that and duplicate that site plan, and then you can use PDF edit, and you can put all the stuff on there that they're asking. But you need to go to the permitting office and ask them in a detailed list all the things you're asking, and in what format. Is it a site plan, or is it just a bullet list, or is it a written paragraph? Ask them what they're asking for, and you'll be all cleared up.
9 times out of 10, they want to help you. Very rare do they actually want to make it difficult for you.
And go in there and smile. Hi, how you guys doing? And trust me, that goes a long way. I've been in permitting offices and I've seen people just lay in on people and they don't want to help you. Be nice and be friendly, and that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Okay? Next question here. Josh, who do you use for aluminum shingles in Cedar? I got a bid for $850 a square with dry-in. Seems high. A little high. Who did your bid? Try Rio Roofing. I think they can do better than that. Just type it in a search engine, Rio Roofing, and check with them and mention my name, and he should help you out.
10% off.
Yeah, so try them out. They did my roof. They're good. They're good local here. Okay, next one, JCTR4. That's a cool name. Do I need engineering for all of the drafting plans, construction plans? Yeah, construction plans are engineered plans. Okay, the drafting plans are not. However, the drafting plans may typically have the foundation plan on there. A lot of architects that are really good, they will include the foundation plan, and then they'll send that off to the engineer, and the engineer will just carry that forward, and he'll have his bearing points on that foundation. But the structural plans are really different. They're stamped by an engineer, first of all. They're separate from the architectural, completely separate plans. And they will have hold downs and straps and the truss stamps and everything on there. Everything from epoxy holding something into maybe a Simpson wall. Who knows?
Length of strap, size of strap,
Everything.
thickness, how many nails are going in the strap. They have a whole page dedicated to that.
Yeah.
They're not very much to have an engineer do that. It's not going to cost you.
It's almost the same for most areas. It's anywhere from $1.50 to $4 a square foot based upon your area. Now, I've seen some people get hoodwinked into getting engineered plans and an MEP plan, which is mechanical, electrical, plumbing. You don't need to go there, and they pay a fortune for that. You don't need to do that.
And speaking as someone in the trades, you rarely follow those because you end up having the engineers don't know. Like as an electrician or plumber, you know this is a little bit easier of a system. You know,
and your architect will include the electrical layout, but not necessarily the load calcs and all that. But you're going to need structural. And I tell everybody, I know there are some counties in this country that don't ask for structural plans. All they ask for is that be built to code. Well, the problem is that who's going to be accountable if something doesn't go right? You have to have something to hold the framers accountable to, something to hold the plumbers and electricians and especially the foundation crew. If they don't have that, then it's well, that's the way we used to do it with the old code. And so don't go that route. It's lazy on the part of the permitting office. It washes them of being involved in the whole thing. But it also puts more responsibility back on you. You need to put the responsibility on the sub, not on you. They need to be held accountable. Don't build a home without engineered plans. And I know some out there do it, and all power to them. I would never go that route. No. And plus, it's going to be a hard time to ensure that. Okay? If you don't have it built according to certain specs and you're trying to get insured and something goes wrong, then it's he said, she said, on what should be done and how it should have been done. So, good question. Josh, do you like to put AC units on the north or a northeast side of a home, even if it means going up and over an RV garage with the lines, or better to go under garage slab to sub panel in the garage? You never want to go under a slab, not for your condensate lines.
I think they're just talking about your line sets.
Yeah, your line sets. You don't want to do that because it could sweat. Mm-hmm. And if it's underground, it's not going to have some aeration on it. So stay away from that.
Yeah.
Typically, some condensate lines have a pump in them, and you don't want to go up and down like that. You can go up a little bit, but you don't want to go up again. You can go up a little bit, and then it's got a nice gradual line to the drip set that's outside or inside a plumbing P-trap inside the home. So the AC units on the northeast side, that's not bad. I don't like them on the south, especially in my neck of the woods. Mm-hmm. It's so hot. It increases an inefficiency on that unit over the summer. It's like trying to evaporate heat in an oven.
You want your line sets as close to your unit so you don't have as much copper going through. Trying to limit the length of it will help your efficiency on the whole system.
Yeah, the shorter the distance, the better. And the quicker the drop from the unit inside, also the better. But cooler climates, it's not so much of an issue. But in hot desert climates, I was talking with a client this morning. We were looking at the design, and I was talking with him. I says, you've got your condensers on the west side of the house, and you're going to have direct southern exposure and western heat. And he goes, I know it's the best place for it for sound within the home, but it's also the worst place for it because of the sun. So we're going to think about putting a trellis or some
That's what I was
vines or
about to
something
say.
over the top of it and help break up the heat impact on those units during the summertime. So
And there's code against how tall you can have it underneath the overhang. So
right.
pay attention to that.
Yeah, look around. But yeah, in the colder climates like up there, I wouldn't worry about it being on north side is fine, but you can do it on the south side too.
Make sure you're not where the snow is going to fall on it and destroy it.
Yeah. Make sure you got proper eave coverage. Okay, next question. Elite Triumphs. I like that name. Should I use clear caulk or white caulk on baseboard trim with brown luxury vinyl plank floors? Trim is white, wall is eggshell.
So what I like to do for that is if you go to like Home Depot, they have the caulk they use for tile, and you can get a colored caulk that can get as close to your flooring that would match. That, or sometimes I go white just to keep it parallel. I guess, yeah, white would probably be what I would do extending down. And then I would have the painter tape that off and paint it so it's the same as your trim.
Yeah, just keep in mind the luxury vinyl might not be a problem, but on wood floors, they do not warranty it if that caulk is connected to the floor because it can't expand. Now check your luxury vinyl if it.
I don't think that they don't warrant it either. You have to do.
And what I do is I like that clean look of caulk, so I have them do it, and I take a brand new razor blade and I shave the bottom of the caulk. So it's not touching the flooring below, but it now can move. But at the same time, you got a clean look. So that's something I think I've never worried about the warranty issues, but I've had some flooring installers.
In the end of the day, the warranty, they're going to try everything they can to not cover it. You can't have cabinets on it and every other thing.
If you can put a baby grand piano on just about any flooring, then I think caulking your baseboards shouldn't be a problem as long as you got enough breathability in the whole floor.
Yeah.
But there's some flooring that's very sensitive and very cheap, and you don't want to mess with that. If it's a high-end flooring, luxury vinyl is designed not necessarily to expand and contract like wood floors are. So you should be okay.
But there's just a little bit that goes, but
a little.
Yeah. So I think white would be what I'd recommend. Also, it's just how you're going to do it. Usually white I do for like holes. Like if the flooring doesn't match and there's a hole in a corner, then I'll try to get a caulk that matches that. But if you're doing from the base down, just do a white base and then paint it.
Yeah, it looks clean. I like it to myself.
So do I.
Next question. Piotr Holitz, hope I said that right. I hope I didn't butcher your name. Piotr. Did I say that? Piotr?
I'm going to let you pronounce that.
Okay, Piotr. Hello, Keith. What are your thoughts about building with SIPs, structurally insulated panels? I am thinking about a 30 by 60 feet rectangular house with a gable roof. I'm not a fan of SIPs. Why? Because it requires a special skill set to install them. It's like asking a framer and saying, hey, I want to build with brick and mortar. Can you do that for me? And so if you have somebody locally who knows how to install them, great. Or if you purchase them from a company and they come with their crew and they will only do it with their crew, fine. But now you're dealing with electricians and plumbers that have to work through that SIP panel. And so if they're not happy with it, then you got another hiccup trying to find them to work with a SIP panel. The other thing is I don't like closed cell foam. I don't like it.
We're talking about that today.
Period. I'm not a fan of it. I would love to see a structurally insulated panel with rigid mineral wool. That would be cool. I don't care how difficult it would be to build it. I'd build it because the value to me is worth that extra effort to find somebody to work through that. But I haven't found a company that has made that kind of panel yet. So, because if there's a fire, it's going to stop at that mineral wool. If there's a fire with the SIP panel with the closed cell foam in it, it's going to.
Plus, like the moisture we're talking about, you don't have. There's a lot of other issues.
There's no moisture permeability through that wall with a SIP panel, and so that's my issue. I've built so many and restored so many old 100-year-old plus homes that lasted longer than homes that were built in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even up to the 2010 and 20. I've seen new homes just literally collapse because they didn't have a breathability factor in them. And the SIP panel really makes that hard, really makes it hard. So that's just my take. I know some people think differently and they love closed cell foam, but I'm not a fan of it. And I know a lot of insurance companies are not insuring homes because they have that closed cell foam in them, because for a lot of reasons. If you get a fire in there, the whole entire home is toast. You can't restore anything with that closed cell foam. It's pretty much gone.
Says he found a SIP manufacturer with blown-in cellulose insulation in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, blow-in insulation is the same thing. It's a closed cell product, or even the open cell product. They're both the same. So I know some people really like it. I don't, and I've never built with that product. The only time that I would use a closed cell product is the underslab of a home for insulating vapor, no conductivity from the cold to the outside. I've done that. Maybe some insulation on the end of the stem wall inside. I'll blow some in there. A couple of gaps here and there. I'll blow some closed cell foam. But as a whole blanket or a whole thermal envelope, I'm not a fan of it. No, I'll never use it in my builds. So,
next question.
Yeah, Coco, hope I said that right. 21. Is continuous installation worth the extra cost? Northern Utah, slab on grade, one level. Well, my daughter came to a job site about 2 months ago, and we had the temperature down around 60. And I just did a full blanket, 1.5 inch mineral wool over the entire envelope of a home. And she said it was the most comfortable she's ever been, especially in a cold climate. So when you are outside and it's really, 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 really cold, like I was out with my wife, I went to a party with my wife last night, and I had this coat on. All right, I was cold, even though this was thick. This was open to the elements, and a lot of other people had a jacket like McKay's got on, and they were more comfortable because they had a full blanket on. All right. Well, if you can imagine a home with a complete thermal blanket on there, it's actually as a buffer for all the real cold that can get in. And then when you get to the wall structure, you've got all that additional insulation inside there. So it does add value. It avoids cold pockets in the home. And that's, to me, the most beneficial. So you've got really a continuous temperature throughout the home. If you've got windows on the south and it's heating up this part of the house, but you don't have a blanket around the home, what's going to happen is you can walk through that home and you find a cold spot over there and a cold spot over there, because you don't have the ability to bank temperature inside the wall over there, because the wall is only about 5.5, 6 inches thick. When you add another 2 inches or 1.5 inches of rigid thermal product out there, it's a complete blanket. It's actually helping to retain all that, if that makes sense at all. So to me, comfort, especially if it's a mineral wool, it's going to be a fire retardant quality on the home. It's also going to cut down on noise penetration from the outside to the inside, as well as the inside to the outside. It's a real plus, and it depends on whether you want to go 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, or even up to 3 inches.
It does complicate when you start doing windows and doors. You want to make sure that you have someone who knows what they're doing when they do that.
So a full inch wouldn't be a problem. It's the same as the rigid ISO foam that people put on right now, especially for stucco in our neck of the woods. 1 inch wouldn't be bad, and it's going to give you an R3 factor. And that, to me, is an R factor with no thermal bridging, period, none whatsoever. And when there's no thermal bridging, that's a big plus. A thermal bridging is, if you had a nail that went all the way through your house and it's -2 degrees outside, and it's maybe a nice 72 degrees inside, that's going to conduct all that cold all the way right inside the home. And you could touch that nail on the inside of the home and you can feel the cold. All right. Because heat chases cold. All right. Actually, cold chases heat, the other way around. So the cold is chasing that heat, and you can feel that pin on that nail. That's going to be cold. So if you have conductivity through the stud wall, that's what a thermal blanket stops. Wood is a terrible thermal instrument, has no real R value at all. And it does conduct through the frame structure. So if you've got an inch or something on the outside of that house of mineral wool or even ICSO for stucco, which I'm not a fan of, that stops. That's a thermal break. And anytime you have a thermal break, you're slowing down the transfer of the heat from one side or the cold from one side to the other. So, well, a little too much science there, but you get what I'm talking about. Josh, do you think it is okay to blanket the ground before pouring the slab? If you don't do that in your neck of the woods, you're going to be in trouble. Just go to a job site I've got out there in the west end of Cedar, and you'll see it. It's all blanketed right now. We're blanketing it for 3 days before we pour.
Oh, you know, Josh.
So,
okay.
yeah. So he's building a home.
That makes more sense. Okay.
So I know he's building a home up in Cedar City. My contractor said, not needed. Your contractor does not know what he's talking about. Only after pour. But others I see doing it before too. If you pour concrete on a frozen slab and that concrete is not heated with hot water, you're going to have a problem. Okay. If the concrete is heated with hot water, which is a way of speeding up the curing process, it's also a way of slowing down the possible freezing of that slab. He's probably going to put hot water in his mix, and that will help. But if you've got 4 to 3 inches of frozen ground and you're pouring on top of that, that's not good. Because if that ground starts to thaw and settle, you could have a problem. Let it be completely heated up with blankets for 2-3 days. And then if it's soft, take the blankets off, pour it, and then put the blankets back on after you got it cured.
It's not that much extra work.
It's not that much extra work. And if he's not willing to do that, and push it, make him do it. Tell him tell him this, your dad's funding this, and if it's not done, your dad won't give him the money. Little white lies like that are kind of helpful. So you don't make yourself look bad, but you blame it on, you make somebody else the bad cop and you're the good cop. If you have a hard time being a bad cop, you just manufacture a bad cop out of thin air, and you can communicate nice and easy.
There's just no reason to take the risk. There's nothing you gain by not doing it. And he already has you can go buy them from Home Depot.
I know what your weather is. I can look it up real quick because I look at it every day. So watch out for that. Kim Winter, is it better to go with a 10-foot ceilings versus 9? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think it's more of a personal preference. I mean, 10 is tall. These are 10, right?
Yeah, these are 10.
Yeah. I think it makes the room seem bigger if you have the space to do it. Your building costs are going to be a little bit higher than you are for 9, but if you can do it, then do it. What do you think? If
you're going with 8-foot doors, you're going to want the 10-foot ceilings. But if you're going to go a standard door size like you see over here, that's a standard door size. An 8-foot door is going to be a little higher, right about there. And if it's 8 foot, then you only have a 9-foot ceiling. You're going to have very little reveal from the top of that door to the top of the ceiling.
You'd be able to tell. It just looks a little silly.
It would look silly.
So that's why your expenses are going to be there. But you can do bigger windows, which are also going to have some more expenses. Mm-hmm. And lumber packages are going to be more because you're going to have to get longer wood. But
it's up to you how much you want to spend. Yeah, but it does.
If your dad's funding it, like the last.
Yeah, if it's a HVAC system, and you're going to have to eat that extra square footage. Mm-hmm. So some things to think about. I like 10 foot, but if I was going to be very conservative on a Rambler first home,
investment property,
Yeah. Next question. Glenna. Hey, Glenna, how you doing, girl? Welcome. Would you keep away from Zip R6 due to the EPS foam and go with the exterior mineral? You bet, girl. I would stay away from the Zip and I go right with the mineral wool. I've got some pictures. Just text me. You got my number. I'll send you some pictures of a home we just did. We did 1.5 inches of mineral wool. I did contact Power Wool out of Canada, by the way. They now have 1 inch of rigid mineral wool, which acts as the complete thermal protection from a thermal break inside the home, which is a real plus. But they can go 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and 2.5 inches. And I think they can even go up to 3 inches. And they also have a new product that they're going to have a 3 to 4 inch, I think, of rigid mineral wool for roof on the flat roofs. And we might talk about that for your home. So they're running their specifications on that. They're running their testing on it. And they should pass here in the next few months. If not, there's other products we have, but I have a great relationship with Powerwool out of Canada. I really like their company. I like their product. And so we'll talk some more on that. But yeah, mineral wool all the way.
Okay, I have some more information from this question. Okay, this is the part.
Our windows are 66 inches tall. What does that come to? Do you have a tape measure? I usually pull out a tape measure.
40.
5
That's
times 12 is 60, so it's 5.5. Their windows are 5.5 tall.
As long as your header, that should fit if they're 5.5 tall, as long as your header can fit over the top of that, and your header is going to probably be a 2x12 if it's if it's typical dimensional lumber. If it's just LVL lumber, then they can do triple of those with 9 3/4, with 11 3/8 or whatever.
Do you know, Kim?
I don't.
Okay.
No.
So I guess bigger because you can always bring your windows down. It just depends on where you are in the framing. If you're going to do it, then you can make your windows shorter and make it fit underneath your header. So it's just what.
Yeah, you just have to watch out. If you bring them too short, then you have to have tempered glass if they're within 18 inches of the floor.
Yeah.
Is it 18 inches or 22 inches? I can't remember. If it's too close to the floor, then it's within that range. Then they'll ask for it to be tempered because it's too close to the floor.
Drawing now.
Yeah. Same thing with if it's too close to a door, an exterior door. I think it's 22 inches. I can't remember. I got to look up that code. It's been a while. Then they'll make that to be tempered too, and that could increase your cost on that window. So
well, if you're drawing, then you can also do smaller windows. But
yeah,
just go 10 foot. You'll love it.
Yeah, 10 foot.
Go 10 foot and you'll like it.
Just what your budget is.
Yeah. Robert, I have a 4-way inspection scheduled for next week. Can you give me some advice on how much I should be there and whether or not anybody but the plumber is there, like HVAC or electrical or sub? First of all, inspectors don't like anybody there. Second of all, if you haven't purchased the How to Build Your Own Home course at howtobuildyourownhome.com, take the self-managed course, all right? It has all the checklists you could ever imagine: plumbing, electrical, HVAC, framing. And with a 4-way inspection, that's going to be all your mechanical and your framing all packed in one. In my neck of the woods, we call it a 7-way inspection because it includes shear and some other they've broken it up even more. Mm-hmm. But in your areas, it's going to be all of those. Now, here's the challenge. If you're framing, ask them if they can pass off. Well, it's already done now. I like to get the framing done first and get that inspected. Some inspectors won't allow that. They want it all wrapped up because they're probably too busy. But if they can, then you know you're not going to have a problem. I framed a house a couple of years ago, got the electrical, mechanical all done, and the inspector says, I want some shear panels on here. Even though the engineer didn't spec it out, he was demanding it. I had to have the electrician come move wire. I had to have the HVAC come and move some ductwork, all to put in a whole shear support inside that home. It was not fun. He's retired now, thank goodness. But that's the problem you run into. If you aren't positively sure the framing is really up to snuff and you go ahead and get all the mechanical in there, who knows what you're going to run into. So if you can separate the framing from all the mechanical, great. If not, take the course, get those checklists. I swear it's going to be invaluable to you because you'll be able to go on a job site and look to get things done before the inspection even takes place. You'll be able to catch things. There's a huge list there. So
but is it not? So it's, I don't know. I agree with that. I like to be there when the inspector's there. So if there's anything that's questionable, you can.
I like to be there,
okay.
But I don't like my subs to be there because they don't know how to talk with the inspectors, and they can tend to be a little terse.
I like to have them outside or something, and because the worst thing you can do is have something that you're not going to pass with and say,
right.
Like he's like points out, you need some support on this line. Mm-hmm. You can go get your guy and have him, hey, fix this while you keep following
right.
the inspector, or not following, but being present so you can ask him questions because they don't want to have to come back if they can avoid it. So if they can pass it, then
yeah, I used to be there a lot with inspectors, but now I'm so busy. I just wait to see what the report says. And if I pass, great. If I don't, then I have a bullet list of specifics to attack. And then I forward that off to my plumber, I forward off to my electrician. They see, oh, I missed a nail plate or I missed something. They come back, do it, I reschedule it, and I'm good to go.
Most inspectors will take pictures, or they will actually mark on the house,
Mhm.
like you're missing, this is too close to the exterior, you're missing nail plates.
Mhm.
That's most of the time you're failing inspections is nail plates and strapping.
The one area that I like to be there is if we're going to pour the same day.
Yeah.
And if I've got an inspector coming in an AM inspection, I've got a PM pourer, or I've got an AM inspection and I got an inspector coming at the same moment, then I like to be there. And if he has an issue, you don't see this. I go, tell you what, we're getting it done now. Can we pour? Yeah, we'll get it done. And if I can sweet talk him, then I've usually made that work a lot of the times. Concrete and rebar, that's when I'm always there. But for the rest, invariably, there's always something.
Yeah.
And I don't care who it is, they'll find something. And I just plan for it and I wait for that to come in the email. And then I send it all to my plumbers and I just reschedule the inspection for the next day. So hope that answers your question. Anything else there?
I think you're good.
Okay. Next one. Let's see how much time we got. Oh, we got 5 more minutes. David B., when are we going to start building in metric? I don't know why we never started in metric. We should have made that change back in the 40s, to be honest with you. And it would have made everything evenly divided by tens, but we never did that. And now we have in our mind etched forever an inch and a foot and a half a foot. So next question. My wife's pushing me. I got lots of questions. Peyton C., what's your number one piece of advice for a new builder looking to build their first spec home? Real quick, what's your first piece of advice?
I think just making sure you have all of your budget organized. You don't want to go into it and lose your shirt and end up not making it through.
And I will ditto that, and I will tell you to go to How to Build Your Own Home for the best budget out there, period.
That's what I meant to say. I meant to say that.
Go there, and it will give you every line item you can ever imagine. And starting a build without knowing that there's costs here that you didn't factor, that's going to eat your shorts. So get that budget, download it, and you will be very, very pleased.
Yeah.
Yes. Alan Babchuk, can you speak about land above and below road level in terms of sewer and wastewater services? Should I aim to purchase above road level? First of all, yes. Second of all, comments.
I mean, you run a lot more risks if you could choose between getting a road level and below, always go road. But I was doing a house and they were below road level. It rained really hard. It flooded the foundation. They dug it down 4 feet of water before we even started building. Like, you're going to run into issues with that. Plus you have the pumps and everything else to make sure the house stays good. Which
is electricity required to constantly push sewer out of a home. I like gravity fed. I don't want to have plumbing. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? We could have power outages like we did in back east for weeks and weeks on end for people. And imagine being on a sump pump.
So I had a client, or potentially they ended up not working with me, but they were buying a house. They were below the water level because here in southern Utah, there's a couple of swamp areas. The house went for sale. They bought it. They didn't turn on the power. House sat for a week with no power. There was 1.5 feet of water just from the water level rising because the sump pumps weren't continually pumping out water. So that's one of the other. That's very specific. I didn't know that's what the issue was going to have when I walked in, but you'll end up having that.
Stay at least a foot above center line of street, and you should be fine, especially with a slab on grade.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Chris Martin, what is the price difference between rock wool and power wool exterior insulation? Good question. They're about the same. I think a power wool is a little more affordable, and power wool is great communication, and they're fast, and they drop ship right to where your location. I've reached out to all these other companies, and they're so darn busy. I told them who I am. I'm some dude. I have 30,000 subs on YouTube. Why don't you help me? Nothing. And so you'll find that a lot of suppliers get comfortable with who they're servicing already, and they really don't want to reach out for new clients. Well, Powerwool's a new company, and I'm one of their new good old boys, I guess you could say. So I love them. They're great communicators, and they respond awesome, and their product is great, and I can vouch for that. I've actually installed it on my home. Very rigid, and it doesn't break apart like some mineral wool products do. It's got a real stabilizing force to it. So check them out.
Okay, next question.
Next question. Kim Winter, who should go first? HVAC, electric, plumbing, each want to go first. Good question. I'll let you answer
I
that.
think HVAC goes first, and then plumbing, and then electrical. That's how I do it.
Fattest person first, then your next fattest person, skinny person, and then a super skinny person. And that's really the best order to do it. And
I mean, you can have
Yeah.
plumbing and HVAC kind of go around the same time because
They
they need
can.
to be aware of, because pipes can only go certain places and ducts can be a little bit giving. But
Mhm.
I think HVAC, plumbing, electrical is what I do.
Very good. Next. Robert, I had the framing inspected before paying framer. Good. Now just doing mechanical inspection. I have gone through all the checklists and I'm a student. It has been great. Awesome. See? Good testimonial. We thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. I'm going to screenshot that, honey. Okay, next question.
That's it.
That's it. That's
Oh,
six.
good.
No
Good.
more
Got
questions.
it. We ended just at 6 o'clock.
Just like we
my
planned.
goodness.
Remember, we talked about
We
that.
planned that out just great. Again, this is our last live chat for the year. We'll pick up the first week of January. I don't know what date that is. It's the first Thursday in January. I just want to check my schedule here. We will pick up on, when is that? The second or third? What is that? 2025. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's the second, I think, of January, if I'm correct. We'll pick up on the second. Again, 5 to 6 Mountain Standard Time. Have your questions ready to rock and roll and get ready for my market report for getting ready for 2025. For the most part, it looks good. It looks like a good year to build. There's a lot of positive, but there's a lot of hiccups you want to watch out for. Look out for that one. And again, like, subscribe, share. And if you haven't got a how to build your own home.com, take the First Steps course if you're just thinking about it. And if you do take that, there's a coupon code at the very end, the last module. A lot of students don't see this, and I see them take the First Steps course and they go right into the self-managed course and they don't use that coupon code. There's a discount there. Go to the last module in the First Steps course. It will give you that coupon code. Anyway, well, guys, see you guys. Thanks for coming.
My
Okay.
Instagram's hyperpeak build, I believe.
Yeah, check him out.
McKay Prince, and I got a lot of advice I give for people that are DIYing or doing remodels. That's
Yeah.
all I do.
He's a DIY, hands on the ground. I'm now a general contractor telling everybody what to do, but I don't get my hands as dirty anymore. So, but I've been there, but I'm glad to have McKay here. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Keith.
We'll see you guys next week, or actually in the new year. So you guys have a great holiday. Have a Merry Christmas. Take care. Bye.
Bye.